Hey, Work Positive Nation, when was the last time you heard someone laugh at work? Now, I don't care whether you were in person or on Zoom, really doesn't matter. What I mean is a belly laugh instead of a polite chuckle, you know? Well, if you need a good laugh, this episode of the Work Positive Podcast is just for you. My guest has been the jack of all jokes since grade school. He's the author of The Humor Habit. He's been featured in a few publications like the New York Times, Forbes, and on his mom's refrigerator, as well as numerous other important media outlets. His first TEDx Talk is used in corporate and collegiate leadership courses around the world. He is on a global mission for work happiness and helped hundreds of organizations, including Google, Discover, U.S. Air Force, U.S. Army, Cisco, and Nasdaq. He creates content for Happify, which is an app that provides evidence-based solutions for emotional health and well-being for over 17 million users. So get ready to laugh out loud, Work Positive Nation, in this Work Positive episode.
Welcome to the Work Positive Podcast with your host, executive coach, and culture architect, Dr. Joey Fawcett. Discover strategies and tactics that work positive as Dr. Joey talks with industry leaders who create a positive work culture that attracts top talent and reduces team turnover. Discover how you can create a work positive culture that increases productivity and profits. Here's your host, Dr. Joey.
Work Positive Nation, with no further ado, my new best friend, the man, the myth, the humor, Paul Osincup. Paul, welcome to the Work Positive Podcast, man.
What's up, Dr. Joey? Good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I have a preference for bald guests, and you fit the profile perfectly. So if you're not watching this on YouTube, you really should, because it's two guys who are bald with glasses. Two bald guys with glasses. I mean, that's a podcast. Shouldn't we start a new podcast of our own?
I thought you had a proclivity for bald guys, just judging by your picture. My wife was wondering what I was doing prepping for this podcast when I was shaving my head. I had a full head of hair before this.
Well, that would explain why your LinkedIn profile had an afro.
Right. I got a perm. Yeah,
right. And I'm thinking, what's up with that? So you really go all out for your guest appearances on podcasts, dude. I am
absolutely. So. I just try to match something aesthetically about the host. Yeah.
Well, we obviously have the same accent. You're from Montana. I'm from Virginia. We sound exactly alike. So,
yep. That's right. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I just got to deepen my voice a little bit and do a little. See if I can do a good Dr. Joey. I'd have to work on that just a little, but I think I could probably figure it out.
James Earl Jones. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to have a tenor voice, and I woke up in the summer of my 7th grade year with this voice. So, and this face too, but we won't go there. Right?
Well, so, I think I do have a tenor voice because every time I sing, people go, "Hey, could you sing tenor 12 miles that way?"
Well, in Montana, that's like
it's pretty easy to do,
right?
Yeah.
Go down the block. It's 10 or 12 miles.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll see Ted Turner, one of Ted Turner's homes right over there.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So before Paul and I started the recording, before we hit the record button, one of the things we were talking about was how humorless some people are at work today. Is that a good way of putting it? Humorless?
Yeah, I think humorless is a good way to put it. I think there is kind of a misconception that you either have a sense of humor or you don't, or some people have a great sense of humor and others don't. I mean, everyone, unless you're a complete psycho, has a sense of humor.
Well, now you're talking about my audience.
It's just
okay, and
yeah.
We welcome and respect all people. So psychos, he didn't.
Yeah. Sorry, Dave in West Virginia. I'm not specifically thinking of you.
My brother lives in West Virginia. Now you've offended me twice.
I hope his name's not Dave.
No, that's the good news. But just to clarify, his wife is not our sister. I'm just saying.
Oh, good. Yeah. Okay. Well, but a lot of people think that you either have a sense of humor or you don't. But honestly, I look at your sense of humor like any muscle. And that some people are actively working on it and working it out and developing it. So it's in pretty good shape and used frequently. Other people, they don't access it as much. They don't work on it as much. And so it's kind of like my abs, it's there somewhere, but
You got a
not
one
as
pack.
prevalent as it could be. Yeah.
Right. Right. I keep taking a six pack and applying it to my midsection, but it just somehow doesn't stick. I don't know what that's
I
all
might have
about.
read that section wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So in the humor habit, I'm thinking that there's some fitness tips for our sense of humor and how to develop that muscle.
Absolutely. Yeah. All sorts of really practical strategies people can do to develop their sense of humor into an intentional and really powerful tool to enhance their well-being, resilience, and even work performance.
Yeah, especially work performance, because something marvelous, darling, marvelous happens in the brain when you laugh, right? The uptake of endorphins, serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, even.
You got it.
When you laugh. I remember this has been years ago. I'm 102. I just look 64. But I remember like maybe 86 years ago, I read about a study and actually read the book that Bernie Siegel wrote. He was a medical doctor. And do you remember that study? And showed that watching, I'm a big Three Stooges nut. Obviously, bald guys love curly, right? And so I remember watching X number of episodes of the Three Stooges actually helped shorten the healing duration, and saw an uptick among cancer patients for healing because it released those good emotions, those good hormones in the brain.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of studies now since then, even about the things that watching humor, even finding something humorous, whether you laugh or not. And then, of course, laughing does to us. And like you said, it floods. I think of it as a dose of happiness chemicals. And dose is like DOSE, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, flood our brains.
See what you did there.
And it also decreases that cortisol that causes stress. So there's all sorts of great, like, for example, here's a real easy tip that anyone listening could do. We know that, like, when you're working and you take a 15-minute break at work, studies show you're more productive after that 15-minute break.
Right.
People who watch funny videos during their break, their 15-minute break, are twice as productive upon first getting back to work as people who took a break with no humor. So, take a minute, watch your funny TikTok videos for your 15-minute break. Now, you might need to set an alarm. Like if you're like me, set an alarm to stop and get your butt back to work.
Keep them coming.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But it can, because, there's something that magical that happens, you're starting to let go a little bit and kind of release some of that.
I'm intrigued that you said when you laugh out loud, it's even more so. So my wife and I spend time together when I'm home every evening, and we watch whatever she wants to watch. And so I laugh, and I laugh a lot. I'm my own best source material, so I do laugh at myself a lot. But I laugh at whatever's happening, and sometimes she just sits there, seemingly stoic. And so after 41 years of marriage, I've learned what she's going to say when I say something, but sometimes I just say it anyway so I can hear myself talk. and so I just look at her and I said, "That was funny." She said, "I'm laughing."
Yeah.
I'm like, on the inside, huh?
Right.
So,
well, there's some people who just naturally laugh a lot more than others. And we're 30 times more likely to laugh around other people than by ourselves. But there is a tip you can do if you want to laugh more, because a lot of us intellectualize humor. And so we don't laugh as much. And I'm one of those people. I'm a comedian, and you'd think I would laugh a lot, but a lot of times I would sit there and I would watch something funny and I would think to myself, that's hilarious. But I don't laugh, I don't know if other people do that. Obviously your wife is like that too. Like, oh, yeah, that's hilarious. And so one thing you can do is you can train yourself to laugh out loud more often just by kicking it up a slight notch. So like if something, makes you smile, then maybe just let out a little, and if something gives you a little chuckle, like just push it a little bit, like, and before you know it, after a few weeks of doing that, you will find that you're laughing out loud more often.
Well, you're reminding me that that's how my daughters still react to my dad jokes. It's just,
It-
but if you do
yeah,
it, if you do it often enough, then it becomes a guffaw after a while.
right.
I
Well,
don't think
the
I've ever
body,
said that word in a
a
podcast episode
guffaw.
before. Guffaw. I mean, that's pretty good. But belly laughs. I mean, when was the last time you heard somebody belly laugh at work? Because we're so freaking intense about the results that we've got to get here. What are some ways that we can like detoxify the environment at work so that we can step up into fun? Dare I ask if work can be fun?
Right. Well, I think the first thing is leading by example. So if that's something that's important to you, whether you are the executive leader at where you work or you're an entry-level person, if that's something that's important to you, then you can lead by example with little things, maybe how you carry yourself, or a funny quote at the bottom of your email, or if you're putting together a meeting agenda, hey, on the back of the agenda, there's a blank cartoon, and I'm going to give a prize to whoever has the best caption for it. Little things like that, you can start to model that just incrementally with little things, little doses of humor to start. But there are tons of ways to infuse more fun at work.
Yeah, one of the things you talk about is start a meeting with a weird question. So what's one of the weirdest questions that you've had somebody say, oh, I started a meeting with a weird question. Here was the weird question.
I was on a podcast once and somebody had read some stuff I had written, and there was that tip on there. And so they said, well, we're going to start off with a weird question. And it wasn't the craziest question, but it really got us talking about travels and stuff, because they said, what's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten? And that's a good question, because people have eaten a lot of weird stuff. So I'll save my answer. What's yours? What's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
Well, I'm from the South, so some people would think grits are weird.
Oh yeah,
I don't. Shrimp and grits are like a delicacy.
Shrimp and grits are great.
Eaten. This is a public program, isn't it? Okay.
I always say if your example is something that's not appropriate to share with a colleague, think of something different and share that one.
It's real hard. Don't say that out loud.
Yeah.
I ate it was covered in chocolate, but it was a grasshopper. I ate or a cricket, one of those spiny critters that I normally fish with instead of eat. Because I don't know why you wouldn't fish with something and eat it, but anyway.
Well, you'll know whether it was a grasshopper or a cricket depending on what noise it made when you ate it, I guess.
Well, it couldn't rub its legs together anymore.
Right.
I bit one of them off. I didn't start with the head. Right. Yeah. So what about you? What's the weirdest thing you've ever
probably the weirdest thing is a guinea pig. And
dude, that's just wrong. You shouldn't have said that out loud. Now, like all these people who have kids with guinea pigs and they're in the tube or wheel and it's going reet, reet, reet.
And my sister never talked to me again. No.
Oh, she's still in therapy today.
Right. Oh, Buster. My sister really did have a guinea pig named Buster. But no, I was in Peru, and it's like a delicacy in Peru. It's very common there. It's called cuy. And so I was like, okay, cuy is guinea pig. That's what they call it. And so it's a common thing to eat there. So I ate it, and it was kind of like a real greasy dish. It was a real greasy version of chicken, kind of.
Paul, it's not getting better. Buster is still forefront in my brain.
Just stop.
Yeah, that's right.
Play dead.
Yeah, it's the same reason why in the South we refer to, instead of you're eating a deer, you're eating venison. I mean, it just sounds like something exotic instead of I'm eating Bambi. No. You're not eating Bambi.
Yeah, next time I'll just say I ate cuy. It's a delicacy.
That's right.
People, oh wow, this guy's fancy.
Would you like to try the cuy as an appetizer? I recommend it fried, fricasseed. So let's say that I'm actually, by the way, what was that word again? Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Dose.
You got it. Look at that.
That's an amazing mnemonic device.
Acronym, baby.
Yeah, I love some acronyms. I'm not from the government here to help you, but I still like acronyms. So let's say I'm trying to dose it up a little at work, and I'm starting meetings with asking the weird question, things like that. And we understand the value. We're more productive. We're getting more done in less time. We're actually having fun at work. So we're going to add on to the team, right?
Yeah.
How do I even begin to describe this transformation to a positive work culture using the humor habit?
Well, one of the reasons I wrote the book was to provide ways for people to do this. And in there's an acronym, laughter, LAFTER. And the T is for tell your story. So if your work culture values humor and fun, then that should be part of the story that's told to potential applicants and to consumers to the level that it's appropriate for your industry. So, for example, if you're applying for a job, there's a lot of people that put in their job descriptions, we're looking for someone with a sense of humor. Well, don't ask for my sense of humor without showing me yours first. So you can put a little dose of that in your job description. There's one job description I saw not too long ago that they have a list of qualifications, and it's such and such level experience with marketing, proficient using these programs, proficient at overusing GIFs in Slack. And that's like one little funny thing. It's like one little bullet in the job description that is different than the others. It gives a small taste of what the humor in that organization might be like. Okay, they use Slack. They send each other some funny GIFs. If you're someone that feels like that's going to be distracting, I hate stuff like that.
Yeah.
That gives you a little cue to like, maybe that culture is not appropriate for you. But if you're someone who's like, oh, that sounds cool, then great. You can do that. And, in an interview process, asking a more lighthearted question about how do you have fun at work? Or even if our organization had a mascot, what would it be? And how would that mascot help us do a great job? Whatever it is, that kind of just helps you gauge whether or not that person is a good, funny fit for your organization.
It also humanizes that whole conversational process. Jamie Weeks, one of our early guests last season on Work Positive Podcast, gave us 3 questions that I love. What's your first car? It's really hard to be humble when you're talking about your first car. At least I think it is.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
79 Toyota.
Oh, really? I drove a Porsche 911.
Well, the first one Dad got me was a Ferrari.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not. And then the second question was, what was your first concert? I didn't ask you what you did at the concert. I just asked, what was your first concert? So, I mean, like, Willie Nelson was mine. So I'm like, okay.
There you go.
This dude's an outlaw. He loves country music. He's got a Southern accent. We're not hiring him. But anyway, and then the third question was what Jamie gave us was, what movie do you love that you could just watch over and over and over and over?
Oh, those are great. Yeah, those are great questions. And talking about these kind of different funny questions, and we talked about that earlier about starting a meeting with that. One of my favorites is, what's something weird about you that you love, or something weird that makes you happy? And everybody has their one little guilty pleasure. Maybe it's a type of music you listen to, or a show you watch that you don't tell a lot of people about, or a hobby you have. And what's interesting about the answers to those questions?
What is interesting, Paul?
Well, I'll tell you right now, the one that I share a lot is I love the smell of my dog's feet. And I know that sounds really weird, but they smell like Fritos, corn chips. Okay.
No dogs were injured in the recording of this podcast.
But when we share stuff like that, Harvard Business Review has a great study where they asked teams that were supposed to come up with creative solutions to complex problems. And they had one group just go right into problem solving mode. Another group, first, everyone go around and share your greatest accomplishment and then get into problem solving mode. And then another group that everyone go and share an embarrassing moment. And that embarrassing moment group outperformed the other two groups by 25%, 25% more solutions generated and more creative solutions. Because like we talked about before, there's something magical that happens when we can just drop that barrier a little bit and show a little bit of who we are.
Humanity. I mean, we really are connecting on a human level then, instead of a perceived persona, right? Or a projected persona. It's just like Joey and Paul are having this conversation. By the way, what was your most embarrassing moment? I'll share mine if you share yours.
Oh gosh, there's been so many.
No shortage, right?
I'll take it back to childhood though, when my mom encouraged. I grew up in Colorado. There's this huge suspension bridge called the Royal Gorge. On the way up there, there are these deer who apparently have become kind of used to people walking near them. Okay. So my mom encouraged me and my sisters, go over there and pet that deer. So I go over there and I'm really petting.
You, man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Take your brother.
Come to think of it, she was taking me to the world's highest suspension bridge. Oh, weird. But
it's just one jump. That's all.
But we go over there and we're petting this deer, and this deer didn't run away at all. It just stood there and punched me in the chest with its front hoof, and then stood there after like, I'm here all day, bro. If you want a piece, what
else you got?
Yeah, exactly. So that was one moment. What about you?
Oh man. So like, I was doing a speaking engagement. I was about to do a speaking engagement, and I was backstage, and they had someone doing a presentation before me. So I was like, okay, let's take a few minutes. And I was already mic'd up. So, when you get to be a certain age, you go to the bathroom more than you used to. So I said, okay, before I go out there, I'm going to be on the stage like 60 minutes. I better go to the bathroom just to make sure. So the presentation finished sooner, and I'm in the bathroom using the restroom, and it was not a urinal. And they turned the mic on, and everybody's going, I could hear the crowd roaring. And I thought, oh boy, I better hurry up. Then the crowd started laughing, and I'm like, okay. And so I come out, and the person's downstage doing this, and I'm like, holy smokes, what's going on? And then they bring me on stage and tell me what happened. And it was like,
oh no,
crowd of about 1,200 people. And I'm going to say 98.3% of them were women.
Oh gosh.
So it was absolutely marvelous. I loved it. They didn't remember a thing I said that day about creating.
It didn't matter.
Culture,
yeah.
But I made them laugh, and
that's great. That's great. Yeah. That's you get up there and you're like, prior to coming here, I was the third best speaker on this topic in the entire country, but clearly today I've moved up to number 2.
And not for the reasons I intended.
Right. Oh, man.
Osincup is my guest on this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. Go right now to thehumorhabit.com, unless you're on the Peloton, and hopefully you're listening to us instead of that person telling you to cause pain to your lower back. But anyway, or maybe you're walking the dog or something, right?
And if you are on the Peloton, you can do it. You can do hard things. You've got this. It's within you. All right.
Or if you're walking the dog, like stop walking right now and smell her feet just to see if they smell like Fritos or Doritos, depending on what part of the country you live in. But anyway, go to thehumorhabit.com as soon as you can. It's in the show notes. And if you're where you can now while you're listening to us have fun, check out some wonderful stuff. We'll tell you more about what's there if you can't get there right now in just a few minutes. So what are some of the challenges, Paul, of creating the humor habit at work as the pathway to a positive work culture?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges is that people look at humor, especially, when I say I'm going to speak to a corporate audience about humor, the event planner or the HR person is automatically like, uh-oh, that's a slippery slope. We don't want people using humor in the workplace in a negative way, marginalizing people, that kind of stuff. So I think that's one of the biggest things is people feel like it's not appropriate to use humor at work. And I'll say this, we spend a third of our lives at work, and our sense of humor is a critical part of who we are as people. And so and it's also, as we talked about, it's a built-in resilience tool into the human psyche. So to, not allow ourselves that part of who we are for a third of our lives, I think is to crush the human spirit. But I think that getting over that hump of like, is this really appropriate? I think that humor isn't the problem. I think general mistreatment and, toxicity is the problem, because when you let that stuff go unchecked and people are rude to one another and toxic to one another, then the humor will match that.
Yeah.
And usually when humor is the culprit in a work environment, it's actually usually a regrettable action that is then later humor is the fall guy. Because it's somebody did something rude, mistreated another colleague. And what do they always say afterward? It was just a joke. I was just joking. They don't have a good sense of humor. They need to lighten up. When it's like, well, I don't know. You said you hate working with Maria and she just asks too many questions and she doesn't get it. That didn't sound like a joke.
How's
I mean,
that a
either
joke,
that or you
dude?
just don't know what jokes are. So I think, if you have to ever say, a good sign of like, is my workplace humor appropriate? If you have to ever say it was just a joke, then you haven't told one.
Or if you have to explain it.
Right.
Johnny Carson said, it's not worth telling if you have to explain it. So
Yeah,
exactly. Especially when we men are mansplaining, right? If you have to mansplain it, it's not humor. It's not a joke. It's at someone else's expense. I guess that's why self-deprecating humor is so strong and powerful.
Yeah.
You can't say anything about me I haven't said about myself.
Exactly. And there's a lot of research about self-deprecating humor, particularly if you're in a leadership position, and to be able to make a little light of yourself in a situation. For your employees or your team members, it makes you actually seem more competent and confident and more supportive and approachable to those people. So people in a leadership role who are able to not take themselves too seriously. There's a great, Abraham Lincoln was famous for this. He was giving a speech and he was being heckled during his speech. And this was actually during the Lincoln Douglas debates. And as someone was heckling him and they yelled, "You're two-faced, Abe Lincoln." And he could have yelled something back or just ignored them. But when they yelled, "You're two-faced," he said, "Well, if I had two faces, you really think I would choose to wear this one?" And it's great.
That's hilarious.
What a great way. Yeah. What a great way to have a little self-deprecating humor. And, and the one thing I would say is if you choose to use self-deprecating humor as a tool, one little piece of advice would be to not deprecate or make fun of yourself about a skill that is specifically required to do your job. So if you drop, jelly from your jelly donut on your shirt, and say you're a counselor, it's probably okay to make fun of yourself for doing that. Like, I'm just kind of clumsy today, but probably not if you're a surgeon, right? Nobody wants to hear their surgeon be like, I'm all butterfingers today, right before their vasectomy.
But I can hold a scalpel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. Thehumorhabit.com is a website where you can find Paul Osincup. And you can go to paulosincup.com too, unless that's too difficult to spell like Fawcett. And so just go to the Humor Habit. What are we going to find when we go to either of these amazing websites, Paul?
Yeah, so the Humor Habit will take you directly to my website where you're going to find information about how to pre-order the book. Comes out in April, which is National Stress Awareness Month.
Oh, sweet.
And National Humor Month. So how about that? It's a good little combo. You can decrease your stress by reading the book. But you'll be able to order the book there. But I've also got some fun videos there. If you want to say start your next meeting with a funny video, I got a good funny video about when meetings are run poorly. So yeah, all sorts of good stuff. You can find out more there.
Oh, sweet. We love that. So that's April of 24 that the book comes out. Do we get some goodies? This will air. This is airing after April of 24. So are there still any goodies we can get if we go to the humorhabit.com?
Yes. I don't have the link up yet, but I promise whether you pre-order today or the day before the book releases, is if you pre-order the book, there will be a link where you just go in, put in your pre-order information, and you'll be able to download a 35-page playbook that goes along with the book and gives you all sorts of different exercises to kind of build that humor muscle that we were talking about.
Oh, sweet.
So it's stuff to do before you read the book, during the book, and after the book. And there's a lot of really cool stuff in there.
So it's like a 7-minute humor workout, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It's like your P90X for humor.
Hey, I also want you to give a shout out to Happify. the app and you create content for that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Happify, which I think they're merging and changing to Twill, TWILL, is a happiness and well-being app. And I'm one of the content creators for that app, where you can go in, and I've created a humor module where you can go in and do all sorts of humor exercises, again, to build that muscle, decrease stress, and just enhance your overall resilience. But there's all sorts of stuff on positivity, optimism, a lot of positive psychology kind of tricks in there. And it's fun because it's gamified a little bit too.
Oh, sweet. I love playing games like that. So we're going to dose it, Work Positive Nation, which is dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin. Boom. There, I did it twice. Heard it once,
Nice.
did it twice. I'm all about it. Let's put that in the show notes too, so somebody besides me can remember that. Paul, you're amazing, man. I've loved every second of this. I love the pre-recording show we did that we really should have recorded. But I appreciate you taking time away from fishing outside of Ted Turner's house there in Bozeman, Montana, just to come inside. It's cold. I know why you're inside, but to spend some time with Work Positive Nation, man. I'm better for the conversation. I know Work Positive Nation is too. So thanks, and appreciate everything.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. Please share this podcast with your friends who are HR and small business leaders so they can do one thing today to create a positive work culture that increases productivity and profits. I'd like to give you a free Work Positive course just for listening. It's called Something to Talk About, and it's transformed the work conversations of so many people all over the world. Get your free copy when you go to workpositive.today/something to talk about, and you can start transforming your conversations today. Remember, it pays to work positive.